Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If I can have your attention, please. We're about to start our meeting. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Committee of Adjustments. This is a meeting to consider applications for minor variance and consents held under the authority of the Planning Act of Ontario. Please keep in mind the intent of this process is to review the proposal that is before us, listen to the evidence, and then make a decision. This process is not intended to be used to resolve any concerns or disputes that may exist between the town, individuals, or organizations. If a request for a deferral is made and the committee grants such a request, the committee, after consultation with the Secretary-Treasurer, will set a new hearing date. No further notice will be provided unless there are changes to the application. In order to conduct an effective and efficient hearing, we have adopted the following process. First, the owner or authorized agent will be given the opportunity, if so desired, to briefly explain to us the basis of their application, answer any questions that may arise out of our hearing. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for this presentation. You need to state your full name and address for the record. Any materials submitted to the committee for viewing will remain the property of this committee. Any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. All persons attending the hearing who wish to support or oppose the application must also state their name and full address for the record. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided to make your presentation. All remarks and questions are to be directed to the chairperson of the committee. Any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will also be at the discretion of the committee. If there are several speakers sharing the same view, please select a spokesperson to present the group's opinion. We want to hear everyone's views, however, covering the same points will not advance your case. The owner or agent will then be provided a further 5 minutes to respond to the comments made by any interested parties, answer any questions from the committee members, and if the owner or agent has any concerns found in the staff reports, particularly with any proposed conditions, at this point in time, that will be the opportunity to advise us. The matter will then be taken into committee for a decision, and this will mark the end of all discussion. Once the committee makes an oral decision, any person desiring a copy must file with the Secretary-Treasurer at this meeting a written request for notice of the decision. A green sheet is provided for this purpose in the back of the room. Please note that you must make a written request in order to be included on this list that is used by the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal for the giving of any subsequent notice of any appeal. Written notice of the committee's decision will be mailed no later than 10 days for minor variances and 15 days for consent applications to the applicant, owner, an agent, or any other person who has filed a written request for such notice. If you do not agree with the committee's decision, you may appeal this to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal. The last date to appeal the decision to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal will be noted on the decision. If no appeal is received within the prescribed time frame, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding, and the Secretary-Treasurer will then notify the applicant through written correspondence. People attending this committee meeting are to be courteous to and respectful of the members of the committee, town staff, and each other and other people in attendance tonight. Tonight's meeting will be video recorded and available for future viewing on the town's YouTube channel. We ask that the cellular phones be switched off or at minimum be on silent during this meeting, as they do tend to interfere with the audio system. Thank you. Jasmina?
Good afternoon. I need to move motion to appoint the chair this night and also acting chair. So John Hardcastle is going to move the motion to appoint the chair.
Yes, I will put forward the motion for chair. I put forward the motion for Sherry McHale.
I second that.
Thank you. So I have a motion moved by John Hardcastle and seconded by Mark Shalboa to appoint the Sherry McHale until such time as a new committee has been appointed by Town Council. Do you allow your name to stand for election? The nomination for the position of chair are now closed. At this time, I'm pleased to advise that Sherry has been nominated for chair. Also, I need to move the motion to appoint the acting chair.
Mark Charlebois, I will put forward a motion to appoint Michael Pawlowski as the acting chair.
Thank you.
And I'll second the motion.
Thank you. So we have to move the motion for by Mark to appoint Michael Pawlowski for acting chair. Do you allow your name to stand for election?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. At this time, we have advised that Michael Pawlowski is the acting chair.
Thank you, Jasmine. At this point in time, we will continue with our meeting, and the first item on the agenda is regrets. We have none. Are there any declaration of pecuniary interest? I see none. Thank you. At this point in time, the committee will accept any requests for deferral or withdrawal of applications. Is there anyone here who would like to exercise that opportunity? I see none. Okay. So we will move into our first item on the agenda, which is our consent application, application B18/02 at 497 Maplehurst Avenue. Okay, are you here for the application? Are you the applicant or you're an interested party?
I'm the applicant. I own the adjoining property that's going to be sectioned off. The property is going to be,
Okay, so are you going to be representing yourself or you're waiting for someone to represent you?
I'll be representing.
So please come down to the podium and we'll start the process. Good evening. So your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Holowaychuk, and I reside at 1025 Bridge Road.
Okay. That microphone, yes.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. We are familiar with the application and the report from staff. Are there any questions of Mr. Mark Holowaychuk? Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yes. Yeah, that's
Thank
correct.
you.
Thank you.
At this time, would you like a presentation?
Yeah, if you don't mind. My question is really just, I know what the staff report said, but I'm interested in what you're going to be using the land for.
Absolutely great question. So the land itself has really nice trees on it, and it's really just a nice chunk of forest, basically. And so no plans to build. Basically, I have really young kids, and so the plan with the whole kind of backyard is to leave it natural. Doug, the current owner, has a little kind of like tree house in there, and so we just want it for the kids. No plans for a pool, no plans for building. We may have like an eating area out there with time, or like a fire pit out there with time, or some kind of like structure that's not like any kind of building anything. So I want to leave it intact. There's no kind of development we want to do back there.
Questions of Mr. Holowaychuk? Sorry.
It's okay.
I see none. If you have nothing further to add, we've all done our site visits. The one thing I did forget to do, and I always jump the gun with that, I have to always rein myself in. Is there anyone here for this application? The consent application at 497 Maplehurst Avenue, except other than Mr. Holowaychuk? I see none. Okay, I have to canvass the room just in case there are any interested parties that are requesting information or have any concerns. In that case, we are free to take this matter into committee if you have nothing further to add at this time.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. Gentlemen, Mr. Talowski, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'd be pleased to move that this application for consent be approved, finding that it complies with Section 45 of the Planning Act. I'm satisfied that the plan of subdivision is not required. Nice echo. I would note that there's nobody from the community in opposition, and I'd make that approval subject to the conditions in Appendix A.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Talowski. All those in support of the motion? Okay, your consent application has been approved. What we'll do is we'll take the matter of the variances that are attached to this property at the same time. Mr. Talowski, would you like to move that motion as well?
Certainly, Madam Chair. I'd be pleased to move approval of the variance application, finding it to truly be a minor variance, meeting the tests of the Planning Act, and would again note that there are no people in the audience in opposition, and I don't believe we need any conditions on that.
No, we don't have any. Okay, thank you, Mr. Talowski. Are there any discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Thank you. Your application has been approved. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much.
No, there's no condition. The next item on our agenda is CAV 056 of 2018 at 141 Sparling Court. And I have a note here to mention that there was an error in the circulation that construction has not started, right? Is that it?
Through Madam Chair, the wording should be corrected. Actually, to permit the proposed construction of the new two-story dwelling, not the newly constructed dwelling.
Okay, and that's in the condition that was before us, correct?
It was in the wording of the notice.
Oh, the wording of the notice, okay. All right, so that is on record now.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair.
Good evening.
Members of the committee. My name is Joris Kieran. I'm the agent for the applicant. I'm at 100 Bronte Road, Unit 10 in Oakville.
Mr. Kieran, good afternoon. We will need a presentation for this. As you're aware, staff is not in support of 2 of the 3 variances, so we'd like to hear your perspective on it, and then we'll take the matter into committee.
Yes, of course. As you may recall, this proposed dwelling was in front of you in December of 2017 for a few moderate requests for lot coverage, residential floor area, garage area, and all variances were approved at that time. The construction has not started, as was just mentioned, but the permit for the approved dwelling is anticipated to be issued soon, and construction will be starting shortly for the approved dwelling. Since the applicants are building this house for their long-term personal use, they would prefer the rear porch of their dwelling covered to better facilitate the seasonal use of the outdoor space. Although this roof structure was originally contemplated and eventually removed from the prior variance application, the applicant has since had time to reconsider the concept and decided to pursue it under a separate variance application. The main reason that it was removed from the previous application was to not jeopardize the approval of the main dwelling, and at that time my clients had read the staff report and decided to forego that feature, but have since had a change of heart. The main reason for doing this covered porch, I'm going to outline a few points here in support of it, is the addition of the roof structure over the porch will not be visible from the street and will have no impact on the streetscape or character. Because it is an open structure, any additional massing this roof would add is minimal. The applicant feels that the addition of the roof structure enhances the rear elevation by creating interest and has the effect of breaking up the massing of the rear elevation. And although this covered porch does project into the established rear yard, as noted by staff, we feel this is minimized by the fact that it is not only an open structure, but also because of the setbacks being provided. On the south side, we're providing about 10 meters to the structure from the side yard. On the north side, about 5, and in the rear yard, in excess of 12 meters. So we feel that gives more than adequate buffer to this addition. And just to reiterate again, it is in fact an open structure, so it's not a walled-in addition, if you will. So we feel the above points do demonstrate that the addition of the roof structure over the porch will not negatively impact the surrounding area, and we therefore ask the committee to approve this application. And just, sorry, one last point of clarification. The foundation for the porch is already embedded into the current approved drawing, so that is already going to be built. We're just talking about the addition of 2 columns and a roof over it, essentially. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kieran. Are there any questions of Mr. Kieran at this time? Go ahead, Mr. Charlebois.
Mr. Kieran, you're going to have to walk me through it because unfortunately I only had a chance to look at this particular one at the last moment. But I'm a little confused with the staff report and how it lists the chronology of time and why you're applying for 3 variances, but you're really only talking about the porch.
Right. Well, we only applied for the 1 variance in our initial application for this particular matter I'm here for tonight. However, both planning staff and zoning staff came back to us saying that they wanted to add in, again, the previous variances because they, I guess, were related. So that happened not as of our request, but it was sort of forced on us through the process. And maybe Ms. Mihaljevic can better answer the reason behind that.
Ms. Mihaljevic?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair, to the committee. The reason that the variances, there are 3 of them, is because as per the condition imposed by the committee on the original application, these plans are no longer in general accordance with the original approval. So therefore, this is a brand new application. It is to be considered as a brand new application. I appreciate that the applicant is focusing specifically on the covered porch, but it is a new application because it is a different set of plans than would have originally been considered by the committee.
But the only change on these plans is that covered porch.
That's correct. That's correct. No other changes to the dwelling itself.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions?
I'm just going to direct a question, back to planning again. Can you, because I didn't get a chance to look at it with that context, can you confirm that the only changes to these plans are the covered porch?
Through you, Madam Chair, to the committee, the only changes that we've recognized to the plans have to deal with the covered porch at the rear.
Okay.
But again, as it's not in accordance with the plans that were originally approved by the
Right.
committee, it's a brand new application.
So your comments, though, with respect to massing and your denial of the original variances are the exact same reasons you gave in the first time when it came in front of the committee?
Through you, Madam Chair, as indicated in the report, the plan that we are presented with today, with the covered porch, with the dwelling as it's designed, is very similar, if not identical, to the original proposal that was presented to you in November of last year. There was a deferral of that application because
Yeah.
planning staff were not in support of that application.
Right.
And revisions were made, and it was supported at that time. We are essentially seeing the exact same application we initially saw, which we weren't supportive of. Our comments remain consistent on that basis.
Right, okay, thanks.
Are there any further questions? Okay. Did I canvass for anyone in attendance for? No, I didn't. Is there anyone here for attendance for 141 Sparling Court? You are. Ma'am, are you the applicant or you are? So you're with Mr. Kieran. I meant, is there anyone else who's here? No, okay. Mr. Kieran, if you have nothing to add further, we can take the matter into committee. Okay.
Okay.
Gentlemen. Mihailovich, what were do you recall, what were the changes that you later on approved and supported the application? Because all we have here is what we approved. So from that, what were the changes? What did the client come in with originally, and then they came down to the, I guess, the 37.6 in terms of residential floor area and 28.6 for the coverage. So what was it initially before that?
Through you, Madam Chair, while I can't break down at this particular point the physical changes to the building, perhaps Mr. Kieran can do that. What I can do is break down what the original variances requested were. So the proposal initially back in November was for a garage floor area increase, which was remained unchanged. It's from 45 to 53 square meters. Okay. There was an increase in residential floor area from 37% to 38.3. That had been subsequently reduced to 37.6.
Okay.
And there was a requested increase in lot coverage from 25 to 28.7. That had subsequently been reduced to 25.6 by the removal of the rear covered porch.
I see.
By putting the porch back, there's a nominal change, so by a couple inches perhaps. That is why the current proposal coverage is 28.6, a 0.1% difference from the original proposal in November.
Okay.
So it would appear from the original application, the applicant did remove floor area from the dwelling to bring it down and predominantly remove the rear porch to bring down the lot coverage.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Are there any further questions?
Yeah, I have to admit, I'm still confused. Can I go back to, and this is just the way it was written, and I'm sure you didn't intend to do it that way, but I got mixed up as I was reading it. On the Committee of Adjustment decision that we approved back, CAV A189, was the town in support of these three variances? Because that's not clear in your, it's clear that you weren't in support of the first application, but it's not clear to me whether you were in support of the others.
Through you, Madam Chair, the committee staff were in support of the revised application. The applicant had submitted through that deferral process revised plans for staff to consider, and we evaluated it at that time in order to lend support for the application as it was approved by the committee.
So variance number one, there's no contest about because it was always okay. Variance number two, you did approve in 2017, but now you're not approving it in 2018. Is that correct? Just to be sure? And then obviously number three I get. Okay, I think I've got it now. Thank you.
If they removed their covered porch, you're okay with the size of the house as it is. Once they put the covered porch in, it became, in your perspective, an overmassing because of that calculation.
Through you, Madam Chair, to the committee, if I can maybe explain a little bit more clearly, there is an interrelationship between residential floor area and lot coverage. Where the two variances are being sought together, we do look at the total massing and scale of the structure. The applicant could easily reduce their floor area to accommodate a covered porch. There was no discussion or staff were not opposed to that possible solution in order for the applicant to maintain a covered porch area in the rear. The applicant and their application in 2017 chose to remove the covered porch as a solution to build the house the way that they wanted to build. The increase in floor area was nominal. Staff agreed and provided their support on that basis. Coming back collectively, the same problem exists. There's a collective impact with lot coverage and floor area ratio as it affects the scale and mass of the structure. And in this case, there is a significant projection into the rear yard of the dwelling, which is exacerbated by this covered structure.
Are you ready for Mr. Talowski, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm prepared to move that this application be approved as applied for, finding that it meets the four tests of the Planning Act. Madam Chair, this is the same dwelling unit that staff supported, that the committee supported, and while I accept staff's position that the variances are interrelated, I don't believe that the addition of a porch in the rear of the property, a porch that's set back significantly from the property line, negatively contributes to the massing. It's my view that porches actually add character to the dwellings. So that, Madam Chair, as I said, I'm prepared to move approval. I would note that there's no opposition from the neighborhood, and I'd make it conditional on building permit being issued within 2 years, and that development proceed in general accordance with the drawings provided.
Thank you, Mr. Talowski. Is there a recommendation on, is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support of the recommendation to approve the application as submitted with these conditions? All those in support? Okay. All those opposed? I shouldn't have voted.
Now you have to give somebody to move another motion.
Okay. So this motion has failed. Someone else would like to move a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll put forward a motion that the application be refused, finding it's my position that the presence of the rear porch creates an adverse impact in terms of its projection into the rear yards of the adjacent properties, overlook massing, and relationship to the adjacent properties. So I'll put forward the motion of refusal.
Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Mr. Charlebois.
Yeah, I'm going to add something to that. Obviously, I'm going to support the refusal too. You know, having looked at this thing, and although I do appreciate Mr. Talowski's comments, the fact of the matter is this is getting quite technical, and in this particular case, I'm just going to find myself influenced more by the stance of the town versus the stance of the applicant.
Mr. Tlowski, can you take the chair for a moment?
Certainly.
From my perspective, the reason I was supporting this application was from the frame of mind that I looked at it was that the house as on its own, with those parameters, did not present an overmassing or a negative impact on the streetscape as indicative by support of staff. Now, as you said, Mr. Charlebois, it is a technicality because this overmassing that is being, I guess, sought or considered is in the rear yard with plenty of rear yard setbacks and side yard setbacks. You really can't see it from all the perspectives that show the character of the neighborhood. It is in the rear. So from my perspective, I was more leaning towards the approval of this application. However, having said that, I'm going to leave the matter for the committee to decide. Mr. Talowski? The chair now. Yeah, sorry, Michael. Yeah. The motion right now is to to deny the application on the pretense of Mr. Hardcastle's comments and Mr. Charlebois' comments. All those in support of the denial? Okay, all those opposed? And I will abstain. Mr. Kieran, your application was denied, and if you would like to see, there's the papers and for the, I'm losing my train of thought.
Just you need to read the application was denied.
Okay,
It's just denied, right?
yes, that's it, thank you.
Thank you.
Who's here for, okay, application CAV 057 of 2018 at 1238 Braeside Drive.
Good evening again, Madam Chairperson, members of the committee. Joris Kieran, Kieran Design Inc.,
He's still here.
Oakville, agent for the applicant.
Okay, Mr. Kieran, thank you. Is there anyone here for application CAV 057 of 2018 at 1238 Braeside Drive? Okay, I see no one here in support or interest. Mr. Kieran, if you have nothing to add, we can take this into committee. The staff is recommending approval with the condition that the proposed dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the plans dated March 26 of 2018 as submitted. Are there any questions of Mr. Kieran at this time? Okay, there's a question for Mrs. Mihaljevic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The staff report speaks to the proposed driveway and its non-compliance with the existing zoning. Did I read that correctly? You've turned your head quickly.
Through you, Madam Chair, the driveway does in fact comply with the zoning bylaw. Where there is a challenge is its inconsistency with our urban design guidelines.
Okay.
Typically, we wouldn't want to see circular drives
Okay.
within stable neighborhoods, especially where it's not a character feature of the neighborhood. However, we recognize that the zoning bylaw does permit it. The driveway does not appear to impact any vegetation that we would be concerned about. So it's merely a note to the applicant and the property owner that perhaps an alternative entrance solution should be investigated to better preserve vegetation in the front yard. Or
Okay.
soft landscaping, I should say.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions or clarifications? Mr. Charlebois?
It's kind of like the questions on the table. So, Mr. Kieran, are you considering removing the driveway? Yes or no? Or amending the driveway?
My client is hoping to retain this configuration at this time, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Just felt I had to close that one off. Thanks.
Anything further? I see none. Mr. Kieran, do you have anything further to add?
No, I do not.
Okay, so this matter is now in committee. Who would like to move a motion?
Madam Chair, having conducted my site visit, reviewed the applicant's written submission as well as the town's written staff report, and noting that the staff is in support of this, also noting that they have made a verbal comment with respect to the urban design guidelines and the circular driveway, and heard the comments from the applicant that they would prefer to keep the circular driveway. I note also, too, that there were no written or oral objections or support in terms of this from the public. I find, I'm going to put forward a motion to accept this particular variance as presented, finding it meets the four tests on the Planning Act, putting it forward, subject to the condition that the proposed dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the plans dated March 26, 2018 as submitted, and further subject to the condition that this approval will expire within 2 years if a building permit's not issued.
Thank you, Mr. Schreiber. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? All those opposed? Okay, there's none. Everyone's in. Thank you, Mr. Kieran. Your
Thank you.
application has been approved. So, no one for- Application CAV 058 of 2018 at 255 Winford Place. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Bruce, and I work for the applicant, for the agency representing the applicant. Address is 97 James Street North, Unit 2A in Hamilton.
Thank you, Ms. Bruce. Is there anyone here for application CAV 058 of 2018 for 255 Winford Place? I see none. Okay. As you may be, we haven't, your face is not familiar with us, so I'm just going to clarify that having done our site visits and read the staff reports, we are well within did you need anything? No. Our procedural bylaw allows us to forego with the presentation if everything is, if you have nothing to add. Let me just canvass the committee. Do you have any questions of Ms. Bruce at this time or any clarifications? If you have nothing further to add or you'd like to say anything to the committee, we are prepared to move a motion and take this matter into committee.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
Thanks.
So if you're ready to move a motion, Mr. Hardcastle?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having reviewed the materials, including the staff report and drawing materials provided by the applicant and undertaken my site visit, this is I'll put forward a motion of approval. The addition is minor, fairly small, single story to the rear, with minimal impacts on the streetscape, or none on the streetscape, and minimal impacts upon adjacent property. So I find that the requested variance conforms to the 4 tests of the Act, and I'll put forward this motion of approval, subject to 2 conditions. The first being that the proposed addition be constructed in general accordance with the plans dated March 19th, 2018 as submitted. Second being that the approval will expire within 2 years of the date of the decision. I would note that there were no submissions or received from the public with respect to this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, CAV 063 at 265 Savoy Crescent. Did I skip one? Oh, I skipped one. I apologize. CAV 062 65 Thomas Street. Is there anyone here for 65 Thomas Street? I see none. Go ahead, Mrs.
Good evening, Madam Chair, and to the committee. My name is Emily Vea, and I'm from John Wilmot Architect's office, representing the applicant.
Very well. Thank you, Ms. Vea. Staff is in support of your application, as it does satisfy, they feel that it satisfied the 4 tests. There is no conditions requested by staff for this rear, for this accessory structure. If there's nothing further to add that you'd like to address the committee with, is there any clarifications that the committee members might seek? There isn't. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I do have something just to point out an attention to the description of the staff report. Even though the minor variants don't change because it's because of an existing condition, it does say here that that we're seeking relief because of the second-story addition that is closest to the garage. But apparently, it is not. We've talked to the zoning officer at the town, and it's because of, let me just point it out here. This is the second story that we're planning, the addition, proposing, and this is the garage here, and that is the less than 2 meter variance that we're looking for, and the less than 6.6 meter setback that we're looking for the existing. But it is actually because we, if you look at the rear elevation, it's because we are planning on fixing the rear existing one-story. With just a roof here. It's a flat roof right now, and it needs to be repaired. And because that little area right here is closest to the garage. The variances don't change, and obviously we accept the planning comments that it is still minor in nature, and it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. So I don't know, I just want to just clarify that that is the
reason you're
the
seeking
reason
it
for
versus,
it, yeah.
yes.
We had started out with, we thought because it was from under the older bylaw that that the second story addition would trigger the minor variance that we're looking for right now for the existing condition of the existing garage.
Okay, thank you. Well noted. Are there any questions of Ms. Vea at this time? No, I see none. If you have nothing further to add, we can take it into committee.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Gentlemen? Mr. Talowski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'll move the application before us be approved as applied for, finding that it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act, and that it's just a legalization of an existing situation. For the record, we'll note the clarification as to the reason the variance is being sought as explained by the applicant. I also note that there's nobody from the community in opposition, and as you stated, Madam Chair, no conditions required.
Thank you, Mr. Talowski. Is there discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, it's unanimous. Your application has been approved. Thank you, Ms. Vea.
Thank you.
Okay, CAV 063 at 265 Savoy Crescent. Is there anyone here for CAV 63 at 265 Savoy Crescent? I see none. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Dylan Dewsbury, and I'm from Design Plan Services at 900 the East Mall in Etobicoke, and I'm here representing the owners of 265 Savoy.
Okay. Okay, good evening, Mr. Dewsbury. Members, are there any questions of Mr. Dewsbury at this time? I see none. Do you have anything further to add to the application? We've done our site visits, we've read the staff report. Staff are in support of your application with the current condition that was in the report. You're familiar with this condition, that the dwelling be attached, that the dwelling and detached garage be constructed in general accordance with the plans as submitted, subject to a revised site plan that indicates permeable surface treatment for the driveway to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning.
Yes, Madam Chair, we've been in discussions with the town, and I agree with the staff report, and the owners are willing to submit that site plan with the permeable paving.
Very well. So if you have nothing further to add, we can take this matter into committee.
Yes, that'd be fine.
Thank you. Is there a recommendation? I did canvass. Yeah.
Madam Chair, having conducted my site visit, reviewed the applicant's written submission, as well as the town's written staff report, which I note that they're in support of, and also taking into account what the applicant said with respect to the condition that's placed in here. I also note, too, that there were no written or oral objections or support from the public. I find that this particular application does meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act. Going to make a recommendation that it be approved, subject to the condition, and I'll read it again, that the dwelling and detached garage be constructed in general accordance with the plans as submitted, subject to a revised site plan that indicates permeable surface treatment for the driveway to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning, and further subject to the condition this approval will expire within 2 years of this decision if a building permit's not issued.
Thank you, Mr. Sharbaugh. Discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. Thank you, sir. Application CAV 065 of 2018 at 2051 Glen Forest Crescent. Hello.
Hi.
Good evening. Is there anyone here for application CAV 065 for 2051 Glen Forest Crescent? You here in opposition or in support? In support. Do you want to state your names for the record?
My name is Ken Auden.
You have to come down to the podium and we'll be happy to note it down. It's just that everything is recorded now.
Yeah, my name is Ken Auden. Address is 2055 Glen Forest Crescent, Oakville. And I am in support of the motion.
Thank you, sir. And you, sir?
My name is Robert Grossman. I live on 2066 Glen Forest Crescent. We moved there in 1973. We love the street. I'm an architect. We were responsible for the new hospital there, Adams and Associates. And I love the building that they put up.
Let me guess, are you related?
Not related, but I think it's a huge improvement from the one-story home.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your submission.
Thank
We
you very
appreciate
much.
taking the time to do so. Okay, and name and address for the record, please. We kind of jumped on that one.
It's okay. Charlene Murray, address is 2051 Glen Forest Crescent, Oakville.
Okay, so you are the owners and
I am.
applicants, yes. Okay, any questions of Mr. and Mrs. Murray at this time? No? Do you have anything further that you'd like to add to the application? We've looked at the application, we've done our site visits, we're familiar with it as well as the staff's report. So if you'd like to
Nothing.
say anything at this time, it's your opportunity to do so.
I think it's just in agreement with the staff comments in that we have arborist reports from 2 arborists that state that the tree in the front yard would be in grave danger if we did move the driveway from its current location to the approved location, and which is why we are requesting to let it stay where it is now. And I don't believe that was submitted previously, so I just wanted to put that forth.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. We'll have that on record now.
Thank you.
Are there any questions or clarification? John, okay, Mr. Chulowski, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to confirm the driveway as it's shown on the plans is as it's configured presently. Like it's right now, it's in place in gravel, I guess.
Correct.
And you're planning on asphalting it.
Correct.
That's and it'll maintain its configuration.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or clarifications? I see none. If you're satisfied, we can take the matter into committee.
Yes, thank you.
Motion?
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle. Thank you.
Having reviewed the materials and undertaken my site visit, I'm satisfied that the requested variance conforms to the 4 tests of the Act. I'll put forward a motion of approval. And given that there's no permits necessary, building permits necessary for the construction of the driveway, there will be no conditions associated with this approval.
Thank you.
I would also note that we did receive submissions in support of the application. Thank you.
Mr. Hardcastle, any discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, my lord. Okay, so the last item of the evening on our agenda is deferred from January 16 of 2018, CAV 004 of 2018 at 1295 Tansley Drive. Ma'am, were you here for this application or did you miss your application? No, I'm here for this one. Okay, for Tansley. Are you in support or in opposition? Okay, thank you. Good evening. Your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, members of committee. My name is Bruce McCall Richmond of Glen Schnarr and Associates. We are the agent of the owner of the property. The mailing address is 10 Kingsbridge Garden Circle, Suite 700, Mississauga, Ontario, postal code L5R 3K6. I have a brief presentation.
Yes, please take us through because despite the deferral and the time that you've taken to re-look over the application, staff are still not in support of your amended or deferred application to say.
Okay, we
Thank you.
understand that. Sure. Is that better? A little bit? Okay, I'll speak a little closer to it. Great. Okay, so on January 16th, 2018, I attended the Committee of Adjustment to seek a deferral in response to the staff comments received and to allow the architect time to respond to and revise the plans accordingly. The architect has since revised the architectural design of the home, and the plans are now before us today. We have eliminated 3 of the 4 variances originally sought and are now only seeking the 1 variance. Firstly, the variance originally requested to permit the attached private garage to project 3.39 meters from the face of the main building face has been eliminated. The garage now complies with the zoning bylaw. Secondly, we have eliminated the variance for the interior side yard, originally requested of 0.87. The interior side yard now complies with the zoning bylaw. And thirdly, the variance originally sought to permit a lot coverage of 37.19%, whereas 35% is required by the bylaw, has been eliminated. So the remaining variance today concerns the permitted residential floor area ratio. The zoning bylaw permits a maximum residential floor area ratio for detached dwellings of 650 to 742.99 meters squared in size of 41%. The owners are proposing a residential floor area ratio of 44.24% in this case. This represents a difference of 3.24% or an additional 72 square meters or 237 square feet of floor area from the currently permitted requirements. The residential floor area has been reduced since the filing of the previous application from 319.74 square meters to 300.99 square meters. This represents a reduction of 18.75 meters from the previous application. This reduction results in a residential floor area ratio of 44.24%, whereas 41% is currently permitted by the zoning bylaw. This represents a difference of 3.24%, as mentioned, or 237.88 square feet, which would, in my approximation, equal a room of about 10 by 20 feet. As such, it is my opinion that the requested variance is minor in nature and is compliant with the 4 tests under the Planning Act and should be considered for approval by the committee today. Thank you for your time.
A couple of questions for you. Staff noted that that after the deferral, it would seem that you, I'm not going to say you, but your team did not meet with staff to discuss the issues. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct, yes.
Okay. And the second one is more to give you an opportunity perhaps to speak to it. Well, I understand the math. I mean, that's not really what's in what's in front of us here. What's in front of us is the staff report, which deals with the massing of the building and how it looks and feels, and you didn't speak to it. So I'm going to give you an opportunity if you want to speak to that particular point.
Sure.
Or not.
Well, in my professional opinion, I believe that it's a neighborhood in transition. There are numerous new builds, retrofits of homes in the area. I feel that, as mentioned, it's an area in transition. Although this is a modern home, new style home, I feel that it does fit into the neighborhood. I feel that the design chosen is modern, and given the changing character of the neighborhood, that it would be an appropriate design, and considering that it does comply with the zoning bylaw for the most part, I feel that it is an appropriate designed home for this area.
Thank you, Mr. Charlebois. Are there any further clarifications or questions? Yes, we will give you an opportunity to speak, absolutely. Okay, at this time, the committee has no further questions. Mr. McCall, I'll have you sit down and I'll invite the member in the audience to come and voice their concerns. Good evening.
Hello. My name's Kathy Clark. I'm owner-occupant at 1344 Tansley Drive.
344?
1344.
1344.
Yes. And thank you for this opportunity. I have a number of concerns. One, an immediate one, and I'm not familiar with how these committees work, but it seems to me that previous variances that were requested and now have been withdrawn are really not relevant, because what's at question is what you're coming forward with now, and so I don't think you get brownie points or special consideration because you've taken some extreme requests off the table. And I'd also like to mention that this is a neighbourhood in transition, and I think it's extremely important that we don't allow any construction that does require a variance or goes beyond what's allowed at the moment. This is primarily a neighbourhood. I know a lot of people are speculating and making great profits, and that's part of everyday life, I guess, but it is a neighbourhood, and we as neighbours need to be able to enjoy our neighbourhood too. So I think this house is not in keeping, as staff have said, and I would like you to respect our interests in that too. A further point, I believe that that corner, I haven't measured it, but is at less than 90 degrees, and so there's a safety issue too, I believe. Even now, if you come to that intersection from the west and you want to turn to go north, it's not 90 degrees, it's sharper than that. So you really don't want any more obstruction. Now it's a small house with a hedge, but you really don't want any more obstruction than that. I haven't heard anything from the proponents. I did come to the last meeting where it was deferred and spoke to the agent afterwards, but I haven't heard anything from them. I just wanted to point that out. But those are my key points. Thank you.
Thank you for your submission. Are there any questions of Ms. Clark at this moment? We see none.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McCall, will you come back to the podium and address some of the concerns?
Yes, while I understand that the principal concern is character, the official plan speaks specifically to character and the maintenance of character in existing neighborhoods. I do understand that, but I do feel that for a neighborhood in transition, there needs to be a level of acceptance for new styles of architecture. Although it can seem daunting while looking at the plans, the architectural design of the building, of the home, it is a well-designed home. It contains many architectural features that may, once built, be appealing to the neighborhood. Over time, the building may find itself being integrated into the neighborhood seamlessly. We don't know, but I do feel that the matters before us today, with respect to the zoning bylaw, that it is minor, and it is a minor deviation from the requirements of the official plan as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Are residential corners subject to the same right-of-way allocations of the corners as commercial right-of-ways? You know how the right angle, there has to be a certain setback from that corner when you're turning?
Through you, Madam Chair, if I understand you correctly, you're speaking about a daylighting or area of the or visibility triangle that
Yes.
would otherwise be prescribed on the property.
Yeah.
It really depends on the road classification. So in this case, these are local roads for residential properties, and generally speaking, a visibility triangle isn't built into that framework. Where there's a higher volume of vehicles on a higher classification of road, like where you would see commercial uses, there's a higher priority for that visibility and safety.
Okay.
So it's not taken into consideration in respect to the height of vegetation, hedges, bushes, or all that kind of thing. Where it is taken into consideration is the location of the driveway relative to the intersection. So there's a requirement in the zoning bylaw that would prescribe the minimum or maximum distance of a driveway to an intersection, which you would have just seen on the previous application on Glen Forest.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. If you have nothing further to add and the committee doesn't have any questions, we're prepared to take the matter into committee.
That's all.
Okay. Who would like to move a motion? Mr. Charlebois?
Sure. Madam Chair, having conducted my site visit, reviewed the application as well as the written application as well as the oral application, and taking into account the town's written staff report, which where they do not support this particular application. Also noting too that that we had a member here from the public who raised a couple of points. There's a couple of things I'd just like to say. One is, you know, with respect to the firm coming forward with a building such as the one you're doing, which is difficult under the urban design guidelines, and asking for a greater massing is what's getting you into trouble, I think, in this particular case, just my opinion. But I'm particularly disturbed by the fact that there was a deferral granted and you didn't take advantage of the time to speak with the town, and we heard from the public that they submitted their names, you didn't get a chance to speak with them, and I think you're seeing a little bit of the backlash. On the basis of that, I'm going to find that I'm influenced primarily by the town's written submission, and I'm going to put forward a motion that this particular application be denied.
Thank you, Mr. Charlebois. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Mr. Hardcastle?
I'm just going to just add some additional information with respect to my ability to review the materials that were provided here. The site plan drawing is absent of any contextual details that helps me to evaluate the impacts of the proposed construction upon the site and adjacent lands. It shows it doesn't show the driveway location, it doesn't show any of the existing trees or any of the information within the surrounding context. And the elevation drawings are simple line drawings that are somehow, I don't know whether it's the print or the copy, but I can barely see them and use them to really appreciate the design of the building. So between these two elements and it also with, in consideration of the comments provided by staff, I likewise will not be able to support this this variance application. So I'll be supporting the motion put on the table.
Anything further? Mr. Tlaski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, while I don't find that the magnitude of the variance is necessarily all that significant, I have to find that there's just been no attempt from what I see in front of me to try to fit in with the character given the design. And to echo Mr. Hardcastle's comments, the materials provided, it did absolutely nothing to help me with that, to find that there was an attempt to be compassionate to the properties around it. It was very difficult to understand what was being provided, but what I could see, it did not seem like there was an appropriate attempt to fit in with the character.
Thank you, Mr. Tlowski. Well, you've heard the comments from the committee. We hope that in the future you'll heed those comments when bringing applications before us. I too have to agree with my colleagues. I almost asked you, where is your site plan? Because I didn't really understand what that drawing was in the beginning, and all it said was site plan, and I kind of bit my tongue and waited. But I have to agree with Mr. Tlowski, as a number, if we're looking just at numbers, your number is small. It's not that big of an ask, but we have to look at an application as a whole, with its impact, with everything, and how it looks in the neighborhood as a whole. It's not just about numbers, and we've approved more numbers and we've approved less numbers. At the end of the day, what does that number speak to the person when they're looking at those drawings within the environment that they're in? So I think those are the comments of the committee. With that said, the motion on the table is to deny this application for all these reasons. All those in support of the denial? Okay, your application has been denied. Thank you.
Thank you.
We still have minutes, right?
No.
We don't have minutes?
We don't have minutes, but,
Do we? The gentleman, Jasmina,
sorry,
has something to ask.
I just want to, we do have some housekeeping from the last meeting, March 27th. Actually, it was the wrong section pulled from the generating Amanda section for the application for 1388 Dundas Street. We just need to correct. We do have a right to correct those wordings. Like actually, the section 45 instead of 45, it was 45-2, which Mark has approved, but actually it was on the decision 45-1. So we just corrected, so we need to re-sign again this decision. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn. We have no meetings, so motion to adjourn. Mr. Hardcastle. Motion to adjourn at 8:10. Thank you, all those in support. We have adjourned.